Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to announce our L. Robert Payne lecture speaker today. It's my absolute pleasure to bring Maya Madsen to you. She is a self-proclaimed vegan with a sweet tooth, and she's going to tell you all about how she started her cookie company. Welcome, Maya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming, and high profile, that's pretty high up there to say, so I guess I'm still dealing with imposter syndrome, but here I am. I'm excited to tell you the nitty-gritty of the journey of Maya's Cookies. So do you guys want like the serious business, or do you want to hear like some stories and some shit, or do you want to get a combo of both? So let me know. Combo, okay, we'll do a combo. So again, my name's Maya Madsen. I am the founder and CEO of Maya's Cookies. We are a vegan cookie company based here in San Diego. When most people hear vegan cookies, your first thought, if you're not vegan, is dull, dry, bland, chia seeds and oats. But our cookies are the polar opposite of that. Think of indulgent desserts and that sort of thing. So that's pretty much what we do. And I'm gonna use these slides to kind of take you on a journey with me. All right, the company. So again, founded in 2015. What makes our cookies unique are our artisanal ingredients. They're handcrafted. They are 100% plant-based, and turns out I'm good at chemistry, so I've been able to create a cookie that is crispy with gooey center. Award-winning, I've won some awards. And I like to do unique and forward-thinking flavors and on-trend things that Gen Z likes. We are also mission-driven, and I'm gonna touch on that later in our journey. That's something that's a part of me. I didn't do it for the IG and because it became popular in 2020. We're good for the planet, good for the community, and delicious for all. The journey. So here we go. I started the business in 2015, and I've always been, even when I was a child, I was that kid that was always selling something at school and trying to get a couple bucks. What I didn't realize at a young age is that's kind of an entrepreneurial trait that I found in speaking to other entrepreneurs as I've grown that we all have in common. Some people are born great quarterbacks. Some people are born entrepreneurs. I spent the last 30 years of my life as a fitness instructor. I was the spinning instructor. I started in the 80s. That was my career. And the more I learned about fitness and nutrition, the more I started eliminating things from my diet. And one day I woke up and said, I think I'm vegan, because I'm not eating dairy, I'm not eating animals, I'm not eating fish. It wasn't something that I flipped a switch and said I want to be vegan. It was a transition over a course of years. So back in the olden days, we didn't have a lot of vegan products on the market. Being a personal trainer, I eat clean and healthy, but on my cheat day, I wanted to cheat, but I couldn't cheat plant-based because there were no plant-based desserts on the market. And every now and then at a natural food store, there would be one, but it was a healthy dessert. And I didn't want a healthy dessert. I wanted a ooey, gooey, decadent, chocolatey, craveable dessert. I took a classic chocolate chip recipe, I veganized it, and added my own special touch. And it was a hit with my kids. And I started giving them out to my clients, my personal training clients, to show them that you can be plant-based and still have delicious desserts. And it turns out these cookies were a hit, and people would always look forward to me giving them out at holidays and special occasions. Well, 2008, we had a financial crisis, and a lot of families went through it. Ours was included. And in 2015, we were still recovering from that, but I had 2 of my 3 sons in college, and they were at expensive universities. And one day, one of my sons called me in September, and he's like, I can't get into the library or the dining hall because you haven't paid the tuition bill, and my swipey thing isn't working. And I said, well, then sneak in with somebody because I don't have any money right now. For me, that was a light bulb. I said, okay, I need to figure out how to make ends meet because they did their part and they got the good grades and got into the school. So now it's time for me to do my part and get them through college. In 2015, what happened was, so I started selling my cookies to my personal training clients because they were so looking forward to it. And during their birthdays and holidays, I started selling them. So it got up to about 20 dozen a week in my home kitchen. And I was like, you know what, I think I might be onto something. So I entered them in the Del Mar Fair that year. and I won. So my son made that logo. I bought that blue tent at Big Five with a $5 off coupon. I was balling on a budget, okay? And I say that, and I'm going to emphasize that because that is a huge part of my origin story, right? So 2015, I started at the farmer's market. I would personal train in the morning, make my cookies in the afternoon, and then go sell them at the farmer's market. So that was how I started. I did all of those things myself. And working the farmer's market was an excellent thing for me. I got to know my customers. I also watched other vendors and learned from their successes and their mistakes, because a farmer's market is just a little micro ecosystem of small businesses. So I paid close attention to what all the other vendors were doing. That I'm very quiet, but I'm observant. I'm always watching things. So if you're like that, that's a good trait for an entrepreneur. I was always going to all of the grocery stores and looking on the bakery shelves and seeing what's there, or seeing if there's any vegan competition. And if there were, I would buy it, taste their product, and figure out how I could do better. In business, things are constantly evolving and changing, and if you're not staying educated, you're going to fall behind. And word started getting out. I started getting into other farmers markets. And we were slowly creating a name for ourselves. And the nice thing about San Diego is it's a tourist city. So when people come to the farmers markets, they're usually here on vacation. So what would happen is they would go back home to Virginia and email me and say, hey, I loved your product. I'm vegan. We don't have products like this in Virginia. Can you ship them to me? And that's how my e-commerce site was born. So we now started shipping. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to figure out how you're going to get the attention of your customers, and also create branding that's consistent so that they know how to recognize you, and it creates customer loyalty and trust. I made that display so that the cookies do all the talking. That display's a little low. It's usually about 12 cookies high each column. And I did that on purpose because I noticed people would come by with their cameras and do this and film stuff and do content and tag us. So I wanted to make something that was going to really want them to tag us. And that's how our social media was growing, and that's how we were starting to get more of a national presence. So an editor from Vegan News magazine stopped by my booth at Little Italy, and that was a turning point for me. He wrote an article about us in their national publication and ordered product, and then wrote another article saying 5 plant-based brands that you need to know. And that really put us on the map and got a lot of attention and accelerated our e-commerce. I started sending out cookies. We would just Google people that we thought were influencers or famous and try to get their contact info and ask them if we could send them a box. 50% of the time, they would actually respond and repost us. And then our following was growing, and it was growing, and it was growing, and we had 3,000 followers, and it was awesome. So everything's going great. We're tooting along, and we all know what happened in 2020, the pandemic. And the farmers market shut down. So I said, okay, all we have is our e-commerce, and we started a pickup at our facility. And we would use the front lobby, and people would come and order online, and we'd give it to them that. So that was keeping the lights on. We were shipping about 20 orders a week. It was just myself, my tech nerd adjacent friend Shelly, and one other helper, a baker. And in June of 2020, all the social unrest happened, right? Like it was happening, but it really came to a head. And what happened is, if you look at that picture right there, that's a post that Kerry Washington, the actress, made. And it was Black businesses to support. So due to all of the social unrest and things that happened in early June, George Floyd, there was a lot of reaction and people wanting to support Black-owned brands and Black-owned businesses. So I woke up on June 4th to 10,000 orders in my Shopify. And someone said, yeah, Kerry Washington posted you. And your name, your business is on a list, a lot of lists floating around the internet of Black-owned businesses to support. And I took a deep breath and I opened up my bank account. And I have never seen that much money in my entire freaking life. And I'm like, we are not giving this shit back. We are not giving this money back. We are fulfilling these orders by any means necessary. And Shelly is my warrior friend, so she was like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna do that? And I'm the one who's like, anything is possible. So I did the math and I figured out it was like, almost 500,000 cookies I had to bake. And I said, okay, if we can ship out 500 orders a day, we can get everything out like in 6 weeks. At that time, supply chains were disrupted. So do you know what that means? That means we couldn't get a lot of the ingredients we needed. Now, vegan ingredients, you can't just go to Vons and get specific vegan white chocolate. These things have to be specifically sourced. So I went to town. I was like, okay, here's what we need to do. First things first, we need to get staff. We don't have enough people. And Shelly's daughter had just graduated high school, and she's a high achiever. And I said, Emily, I need you, listen to me. This is serious. I need you to find every valedictorian, salutatorian, tech major, pre-med. I want student athletes. I want team captains. I want you to go through your network of everybody you know that fits that and call them up and see if they can come help me fulfill these orders. And the reason why I did that, because I needed people that are critical thinkers, problem solvers. So we assembled 35 high achievers. I had to kind of be a little biased, and I said, okay, I want all the girls on this side, all the boys on this side. The girls, you guys are gonna do the fluffing and making the packages nice. And yes, I'm being biased, but it's because I'm a mom of 3 boys, and it seems that we women have more attention to detail. So I'm just gonna put you guys on packaging. Boys, I'm putting you on the fulfillment and getting the boxes to the post office. It was very fast-paced. It was hard as hell. I had to be the head baker and lead the team, which means I had to start at 4 in the morning, and I ended at 9 at night. And that had to be done in order to get those orders out in a timely fashion to stay on track. So we got over the employee hump, right? The next hurdle was supplies. You know how much ingredients and supplies it takes to fulfill 10,000 orders? It's a lot, and fills up more than this space. And I only had a 1,300 square foot kitchen. So I called my landlord and I said, do you have any empty spaces right now that I can just temporarily use? He did, and we were able to get a space across the street. What would happen is we'd bake the cookies in the kitchen, take the van and drive them to the fulfillment space, and they would fulfill and package them all up. And then I would have the boys take those big bins from the post office and fill them with boxes, and every hour they'd have to take that heavy box. They'd have to run it to the mailbox, to the post office, right? And it was hot, it was June. So at that same time, the Postal Service was going through some things. So they weren't super efficient. And what was happening is people were emailing saying, where's my cookies? And we'd be like, we shipped them out. Well, the post office didn't get them to them, so we'd have to, own it and reship it. So there's a lot of that. So what was happening is I never was on social media. I let the cookies do the talking. And I realized our following was growing. We got up to like 30,000. I made the decision to go on social media on day 2 of this influx and introduce myself. I was basically telling them, thank you for your support. Thank you for these orders. We're gonna do our best. We're working around the clock to fill these. And I broke down and started crying because I was at an emotional place where it was just, I knew what this was going to do to my business. And the support I got in the comment section was so overwhelming. I couldn't believe it. And that was lifting me up. People were saying, don't worry about my order. I placed it. I don't care how long it takes for me to receive it. It took a while. There were a lot of stories and things that happened during that. That was a period of intense problem solving and critical thinking for me, because every day something happened. Every day it was something new I had to figure out. And it seemed so hard, and it was so stressful, and I wasn't eating, and I lost 15 pounds. I couldn't stop to eat, because if I stopped for 15 minutes, that cut into production time. And I was also trying to lead a team and, show them that we can do this, and it's hard, and we got this. So I was doing that, but I was also putting my body to the ultimate physical and mental stress level. And I want to emphasize that, because as an entrepreneur, you hear that it's hard. It's hard. You have to be gritty. You have to be a self-starter, and you have to take failure and not let it cripple you, because to this day, I experience failures constantly. So if you've been coddled up until now, you are not going to make a good entrepreneur, because it is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I gave birth naturally 3 times. But let me tell you this, the rewards are worth it. I'm able to do so many things. I'm able to give back to my community in meaningful ways. I provide jobs. My son now works for me, and he was able to buy his first condominium. Just life-changing things. You're providing jobs. You're providing joy people get from our product. So What was happening is, I'm in this commercial area across the way, right? A commercial kitchen. We're getting through those orders. The media's finding out about us and the media's coming. So I hire a PR and marketing consultant who has the business acumen that I didn't have. I've learned languages or business language and terms I'd never even spoke until 2020, right? So she took me in and said, okay, first things first, let's clean up your branding. So we took a lot of that money that I got, and I spent most of that money fulfilling those orders, by the way, but I set some aside to hire her. She cleaned up my branding. She told me we need to tell your story. So I started my life in the foster care system. I was born in the 60s, and I had a difficult childhood, and people always ask me why I'm so gritty and driven, and it's because I've had to be independent on my own from an early age, and that's all I knew. And she said, people are gonna see you and see that anything can be done. It doesn't matter where you come from. And she said, you need to share that story. And once I started sharing that story, I realized that she was right, that I was the representation that needed to be shown. I was representation I didn't have. When I was 7, I wanted to be a nun, but in 1977, I didn't see any black nuns, so I just assumed I couldn't be a nun. So that story, I remember that, and I said, okay, you're right. So I own my story. I'm starting to share a little bit more. I'm able to donate more to meaningful organizations that are important to me. A lot of foster youth organizations for aging out of the foster system, marginalized communities, underserved communities. That's my jam. That always has been, and people understand now why that's my jam, okay? So that's important because your generation, you guys want to get behind somebody that means something and is doing something for you and your community and what you stand for. And I recognize that, and I didn't know that at the time. That's just how I operated, and I appreciate that you guys do that. And I say you, I'm generalizing. Maybe not everyone's like that, but in my lived experience as an entrepreneur, you guys are killing it, so thank you. Okay, so see that storefront? That used to be the lobby of our facility, and what happened is people kept coming trying to buy cookies, and I'd be like, no, we're an e-commerce brand, and you gotta wait till Saturday at the farmers markets. And then I was like, wait a minute. I wonder if I could turn this into a store. So I called my landlord, and he's like, yeah, why not? And he goes, you just can't put up an awning. And I was like, okay. So I created fake awning decals on the window instead. That's that pink stripy stuff you see. And made it look like a store. And it's in an industrial area across the highway. It's not easy to get to. And it's in a weird location. And people are just like, but I'm like, because I never intended to have a retail store. And people come. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do retail. People want our cookies. And it's low cost. It was already there. I didn't have to go out and seek a landlord and a facility. So the moral of that story is use what you have, right? Sometimes you can use what you have and make it work. And our retail stores only open 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, 36 hours, and we do great. It has allowed us to grow even more. And people come to that retail location from near and far, so I decided, I wonder if I should open up another location in a real retail establishment. So we've since opened up our second store in San Marcos, near Cal State San Marcos. Okay, so let's fast forward now. Do you guys know who that guy is? That's John Sally, otherwise known as the Spider. He is an NBA legend. If you watch that documentary on Michael Jordan, he's in it, so he is part of the bad boys with the Detroit Pistons. And he's vegan. So this is going to be a little lesson on you miss 100% of the shots you don't take and manifestation. So years ago, I said, okay, John Sally, he's a big vegan. He has daughters, so I know he respects women, or it seems like he respects women. I would love to connect with him and see if he's interested in helping me with my brand. We had a media guide and a media list that we sent out every time we were doing something interesting, and PETA was on that list. People for Ethical Treatment of Animals. And PETA recognized us and gave us some awards, and they order from us. And so we called PETA and we're like, hey, any chance you can introduce us to John Sally? And I remember Chris at PETA said, well, we don't normally do that with our high profile clients, but I believe in what you're doing and I'm gonna make the introduction. And now John Sally is an advisor to Maya's Cookies. And that's him at the grand opening of our second location. Your network is your net worth, like I heard earlier, and you have to know the people to know the people, and you just have to ask. I used to be always so afraid to ask people for things, and now I don't give two shits. I just say, hey, do you know so-and-so? You have to be confident. You can't go, huh. Do you mind if you introduce me? You have to say, hey, I'm working on this project. I think so-and-so could possibly be a great introduction. Can you introduce me to them? So John Sally's part of the team. We've since cleaned up our branding, cleaned up our packaging. We have a clear vision of what we want to do. My son I brought on, he is our director of finance. I was always tight with my finances and knew every little dime I was spending, where it was coming from day one. You can't be sloppy with that sort of thing because it's going to be extremely important when you're seeking investors or funding. They want to see that you know your books, you understand your business model, you understand your customer, and you have a tight grip on your finances. And I didn't realize that not everyone does that, has a tight grip on their finances. I knew I did because I'm a Virgo, and that's how we roll. So what was happening is when I was scaling up and needing to get money, I still haven't gone to a bank, by the way, I had my finances clear because I had a part-time bookkeeper. And I was able to explain and talk through my finances. So that shows someone who wants to loan you money or invest in you that it's a risk, but maybe it's a little less of a risk because they're not sloppy with that sort of thing. So if that's not your jam, you need to hire somebody, because you need to make it your jam or you need to hire somebody. So all you budding entrepreneurs in there, tight books, right? Okay, so as I'm growing, building my team, I now hired a marketing in-house person who is an SDSU 2020 grad. She handles all of our social media and things like that. Your generation and other generations, it's all about the social. That's how we shop. That's how we look at things. And if you don't have a creative who can help you with that, then you're going to be screwed. All right. So that's my long-winded journey till today. So this is our business model. We have several channels, right? And I think for a CPG, consumer packaged goods, that's extremely important. In this day and age, you have to diversify your business channels. We do subscription boxes. Then we have our storefronts, our 2 locations, and then we have select wholesale partnerships, and we haven't dabbled into grocery yet, but we're about to potentially. So let me just speak briefly on each of those business models because maybe it might resonate with some of you. So the direct-to-consumer is the most profitable way to go, right? You're selling straight to the consumer. There's no middleman. You sell them the stuff, you get your coin. So part of that is subscription boxes. And corporate gifting, I didn't know there was such a thing, but apparently there's big multi-million-dollar corporations that have hundreds of thousands of employees, and they need to give those employees presents on their birthdays and special occasions. We figured out that most of our e-commerce are gifts. So I'm just going to brag a little bit about some of our corporate partners. One's Netflix, and every week we send out hundreds of cookies to them, and they package them up and send them out to everyone who's having a birthday that week who's in the Netflix umbrella. You have to build a brand and build trust and all of those things and be consistent. You don't just wake up and Netflix calls you, right? When you start a business, some of you may experience this, there's a lot of people going, well, you know what you should do, and you should do this, and you should do that. And people think they know what you should do, but they really don't. So in the beginning, people used to say, you should be in that coffee shop and this coffee shop. And I'd be like, yeah. So I went around and got in coffee shops, but guess what? I wasn't making any money because coffee shops are selling coffee, not cookies, number one. Number two, it's not a good representation of my product because it gets stale in their display case. Number three, you have to sell it to them at a wholesale price, which usually means half price, but you're still doing the same amount of work. And it wasn't profitable. So I pulled out of that after about 3 years, and people would be like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, it's not profitable. It's my business. I crunch the numbers. I'm telling you, it's not profitable. And they're only selling like 24 cookies a week, and you're driving all over town delivering 24 cookies to a coffee shop. It's just ridiculous, right? So when I say select, it has to be meaningful. So our select partnership is we're in the Hudson News at the airport. So they sought us out. And they get 25 million enplanements is what they call it when we're going through the airport a month. So, or I don't know, a year. I don't know what the number is, but I just remember 25 million. And I was like, okay. So for me, it's a way to partner with someone that will, it's a big purchase order every month from them, number one. And number two, Hudson is in every airport, right? So there's room for expansion if we do a good job. So that's what I mean by select. Everybody wants to have your product because it makes them look good, but it might not be profitable for you. So you need to be very intentional when it comes to your coin, right? Just because someone wants you in their establishment doesn't mean it's right for your product or your business. And then grocery. We haven't gone into grocery because grocery sounds sexy and exciting, and that's what everybody wants, but it's so expensive, and if your product doesn't sell, they'll just cancel your order. So with grocery, that's a channel we're treading lightly. I see space for us, but I want to grow the brand a little bit more, and I want to wait. I want to talk about our sales traction. So this is farmers market, farmers market, farmers market, farmers market, and e-commerce in 2018, and then 2020, okay? So I don't know any business that can go from this to this. And what I want to point out to you is that we were able to sustain it year over year, and it's not easy. It's hard, and it's expensive. But the lesson here is a lot of businesses that were going viral with me in 2020, because I'm still in touch with them, a lot of them have gone back to like the 2019 bar. And it makes me sad to see that. And I try, I don't want to give people advice they don't want, because nobody, if they don't ask me an opinion or advice, I'm not going to give it to them. But I saw what was happening. They weren't taking advantage of that opportunity and taking risks. You have to take risks when you're an entrepreneur. Not every risk is going to work out, but you can't be like, I don't want to do it. You have to take risks. So I took some risks. You need to put yourself in spaces with people that know more than you and make an ally with them and ask them for help. That's part of why we're able to grow year over year and continue that, continue evolving with the times, continue evolving our product. It was a 6x growth from 2019 to 2020. And I remember my husband, who works for a major corporation, said any company would cripple under those circumstances. So you should be proud of yourself that you were able to make it through. Thank you guys for having me. Please connect on LinkedIn, because your network is your net worth, and you never know if I could be of help or you could be of help. So find me on LinkedIn, Maya Madsen, and let's connect.